doing? Happy Monday. Welcome to live stream number 82. Today is October. It is the 23rd, 2017. It's Monday, folks. Got another great week ahead of us here, so why not get into some Fusion 360. Today, we're going to talk about joints. It's not a new topic, but we're going to talk about controlling joints. And this was an email I got from Alan, who was talking about making bifold doors. I think Alan already resolved this issue and he probably already moved on. But I thought it was a good kind of like topic to us to get in and talk a little bit about joints, assemblies, maybe show us a couple of tips and tricks. See, we already got a bunch of people in the live stream. Hi to Tommy, Lucas, Isaac, Bob, Jacob, Scott. You guys are awesome, all of you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. And if you're watching the recording, also to you, thank you for taking the time to join these live streams. Don't forget, down in the description area is my email address. Any future topics you would like to see, shoot them in there, and we'll see if we can make it happen. So what am I talking about? Well, I found an image on the internet, and no, that is not me. I like the title, The Family Handyman. And this is not the picture that Alan sent, but I thought it was kind of funny. And these type of doors, I think that most people kind of understand how these doors works. That you open one and then there's a hinge in the other one and things goes up. Now I'm not planning on modeling all these panels up, but I thought that maybe it could be kind of a fun, interesting talk where we could talk a little bit about assemblies and joints and so forth. So let's just get into it. It's Monday. Let's just get into it. So inside of Fusion here, we can probably minimize our data panel. Let's just start sketching something up. And I guess where I'm going with this is where should we use joints and what can we use it for? Because my first thought when I got this email and you're thinking, let me put it back on me. When you're thinking of these doors and movements, I always like to kind of like, what is the end result? What are you trying to do? Because sometimes I get emails from people like somebody wants to model up a whole roller coaster in Fusion 360 and want to see the card moving with all the moving parts. That's not really the software that Fusion is. If you're trying to do something like that, especially like full scale, thousands of components, that's not what we're trying to do. But this here we can definitely do. And there's kind of like some interesting things about it. So I'm going to start a new sketch here. And the first thing I thought about was there's going to be a track that this thing's going to ride in. And if you are in like a concept stage where you're like trying to figure out how to model things up, maybe you don't want to get so advanced to start with. You're just kind of like trying to prove concept. So I'm going to start a sketch here on this plane here. And one of the things we can do in Fusion when it comes to joints is we can actually attach joints to sketch geometry. So if I just sketch a line here, and I'm not even going to fully define the length of it, I just throw in a line. This simple line in this sketch we can use with joints. So when we're trying to kind of like get this bifold movement in there, we could, of course, again, you could model up the track, but just remind yourself that you can actually use sketches. So with that said, maybe I then want to start modeling up the panels. And if you, again, are just in a kind of like concept stage, want to figure it all out, I'm just going to go in. Now, these panels are definitely going to be individual components. Each panel is going to be kind of like a board, a panel. So I'm going to go in here and right-click and create a new component. Now, the first sketch I created, the track, probably should also at some point becomes its own component, I guess. But for right now, that's fine for what I need. So here we have a panel. I'm going to open up a sketch in that panel, or for that panel, inside of that component. So I'm just going to open up a sketch here and draw up a panel. And I don't know how big this panel is going to be. Something like that. Let's put some dimensions on it. D for dimension. And I don't know. I'm just going to make it something right now without trying to be too advanced, right? So there's like a rectangle, and then we can give it some thickness in here. Let's make it 15 millimeters thick. That looks pretty good. Now, you just saw that I drew this sketch up fully defined. It's black. It's fully defined because I sketched it up on the origin and fully defined it, right? As you're supposed to. But of course, be aware of that out in this world here, when it's a component, it can now float around. So you should still make it fully defined. Inside this component, though, it is when it's outside, it can float around. So you can, of course, always go up and make your top component active up here. So now we can see both that line sketch I created and that panel. So let's go into the joints. We talked about the joints last week. By the way, you see here how I get this box that comes up, and I talked about this before. What Fusion is doing is Fusion is saying, all right, so you just drag this panel around like a madman. Do you want to capture that or don't you? And well, you can choose whatever you want. If we choose to say we want to capture it, what I many times do, just because I'm not too concerned about my feature line down here become like crazy cluttered. If I say capture position, all that happens is that movement became a history that I dragged it out there from down here, right? So I don't really, I don't think there's anything right or wrong. It just gives you that option. If I click revert back, it will just move right back to that origin there. Now, I like it to be out here when I gotta place joints. So if I go over here and I say I'm gonna create a joint, and here's get that coin, and if you haven't watched it, I did a live stream, I think it was last week or the week before, about 3 reasons why joints are better. Check that one out where we go in a little bit to detail how this works. But if I click on here on the bottom of the panel, you will see that I can actually also place one on that sketch. Okay, now it's going to go in as a rigid, and that was what we talked about in that live stream about how removing degrees of freedom and all that stuff. Well, over here, I can change this, and for this here, I might want it to be like a revolute, right? It's kind of like going to be spinning around this point. So right now, if I hit OK, what we have is we have a panel, right, that kind of like can spin around here. Now, I'm ready to create the next panel for this. So here's a couple of, like maybe a little trick. If I go over to that first panel we created, and I right-click on it, and I say copy. Now, here's the thing. So I right-click on the first on the panel like we just created, and I click copy, or Control-C. If I go up on the main name up here, and I right-click on that, you get 2 options. You get paste, and you get paste new. Now, I'm going to show you what this does, the difference. But really what it is this is a copy that will be derived from the first one, meaning all the dimensions will drive that copy, and this will be a broken copy. Let's do first a regular paste or a copy. And again, because I dragged that panel around in circles, Fusion says, hey, you moved it. Do you want to capture it? Now, if I said no, you will just see that it's going to jump back to where it was before. That's all that does. I hope that makes sense. You let me know. So I have a copy now. It's the paste. You can see over here we got component 1, and then now we have our new component here, and we got these arrows, and I can drag a new kind of copy off from that and hit OK to kind of like drag it out of place. So now we got these two different ones. Now this panel, the first one we dragged, right? We have that rotating around there. Now I actually want that second panel to kind of be attached with a joint to that other end. So go over here. Now check again. When I move this around, I get the same icons you will see jumping up. Capture position, or it's called revert, continue. That's the icon I'm getting right here now when I go into to place that if I want to if I want to keep it or not. So this one here, this warning you always get is the same buttons you have up here. I'm just gonna say, yeah, capture position. I don't really care about these. So now I'm gonna go down and do another joint from this new panel to up to the bottom of this one. And you will see that it kind of like got flipped. So there's a flip button over here. And that is pretty much what I want there. Now I have some interference because these are rectangles. Bear with me. Also be aware of down here, you can hit the play button and you can kind of like see what you're getting. So I get this animated little result. So that's what I want. So that's all good. So far I'm good. I'm going to hit OK to that. And if I drag that corner now, you will see that we kind of get that movement we would expect. Now, before we attach this one again, because now we actually kind of want that attached to the line, let me show you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the copy-paste we did over here. Copy-paste versus copy-paste new. So standard copy-paste means that if we go into this first part we created in here, and we edit the sketch, and we maybe make this one 300, so we make it taller, you will see that the other component follows it. When we did a Control-C, Control-V, or copy-paste, they're following one each other. Okay? Now, let's go in and add another joint to actually get this closet kind of movement we want. So, I'm going to go back into Joint. Again, it says Capture Position because I'm moving them around. And I'm going to go in and select this end here. And then I can actually select, again, on that sketch. Now, it goes, you will see that it actually kind of like breaks our original joint. Don't worry about that. It's kind of like just showing you finished position. But this is not what I want. I don't want it to, this will not work. It will be over-defined. What I want is what is called a pin slot. If I click on that, you will see what it does. It will let it rotate while it's sliding along that sketch or along that track. So if I hit OK, you will now see that when I start dragging at this, that I get that bifold kind of movement right there. So I get the right kind of movement that you will think. Now, it's important to understand that Fusion 360 is absolutely built to be able to do this. So you can stand in front of a customer and say, yeah, so it's going to move like this. But you also need to understand that it's not meant as a software to design roller coasters and necessarily like real time, like how this would work in real life. Because what I can do is I can drag this one over and, you know, they can kind of like, now they're kind of like, you see how they're kind of stuck inside of one. And that will never happen in real life, right? And right now you're like, man, how do I get it out again? And you can probably monkey around with this like that, and then we finally get it out of there. You might have to pull it through in the revert direction. But so yes, you can absolutely do these kind of movements. But when it comes to joints, you know, you need to respect what the software kind of like is meant to do, and it can definitely do things. You know, the joints are solving what their purpose are. So a revolve will, or revolute, or whatever you want to call it, will do what it's supposed to do, revolve around, but it will break real kind of like live situations. All right, let's just show one more panel though here. So instead, I'm going to go over here to the first component again. I'm going to right click and I'm going to do copy. But this time when I go up here, I'm going to right click and I say paste as new. Now you got to right click up on the top component in your assembly to do this. Paste as new. Again, I do everything as before. I kind of like get another copy of this one. Just hit OK. But what you will see now is if I go back into where we were before and I change that sketch back to 200 like that, you will see that now only these two are changing, but this one is not. And that's because the paste new gives you a new component. You can actually also looking over here on the name. Component is 1 of 1. Component is 1 of 2. But now suddenly it's 2 of 1. So you kind of like got a new kind of association with that. Now I could just literally repeat what I was going to do, what I did before. What means that I would go in and create, in this case here, if I was going to continue this, this would probably just be another pin joint and another joint, depending on how you want, or if you're going to continue with new panels on this part here. So I would go back in here again, place this one here, and then I could attach that to the first one here, and kind of like rinse and repeat what we kind of already did. I think here. So now you will see we kind of get that. Now, right now, these two are actually going kind of in association with each other, but moving along. And this is where working with joints, it's important you're doing them in the right order when you're working with them, because now you suddenly have the behavior that we didn't really. They're doing what they're supposed to do, both of them, right? They're just kind of like keeping a relationship of both of them. So actually, if I go back once, if we go into this joint, and now we actually probably want to make sure that this should be a revolute. Okay, so now when we do that, you will see that now this panel's pin slot is driving this panel now. Now if I added another panel on the end, then that would be a revolute, but then that would be attached to this one. So go in here, right click, do a copy, and again we could do either paste or paste new, depending on which one. Oh, that was not the one I wanted. I wanted the long one. Hang on. Well, it doesn't really matter. Well, it's my live stream. I'll do whatever I want. Delete that. I should have done that in the tree, shouldn't I? I wanted this one. So right click, copy, and let's just say paste. Move that one over there, and let's add the last joint. So going in here, do another joint from here, and this here would be a that would be a revolute. Flip that one up. Hit OK, and you can kind of see what do we got now. We got these kind of like traveling, and then that and here will become a pin slot, it's called, like that, to that, back to that sketch there where we were before. Okay, folks, I hope that this is helpful. Now, as you can see, we still have some restraints here. The more joints you are adding, the more you definitely are running into, behaviors that can be kind of interesting in here. And this was actually one of my questions would have been like to Alan would have been, are you looking to put something together where you're showing it closed, and then maybe another one where you're showing it opened? Well, I just did it reversed. Doing one that is closed, and then decide to do one where you decide to open it up. But going out to the customer and standing out here dragging these things here, the more joints you're adding to something like this, the more trouble you might run into. And that is, again, because of what the software is meant to be. So, I hope this was somewhat useful. You let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down. But it's definitely important when you're getting inside of Fusion. First of all, make sure you do things in kind of like the right order. Like you saw me switching some joints around and then suddenly you're not getting the reaction you want. Definitely do that. But also just remember what the software is kind of built to do. Of course, there is the idea station out there where you can kind of like influence the developers to add functions in there, and they definitely listen and add a bunch of things in there from you guys. So definitely appreciate that. I hope this was useful. It was Monday. Tomorrow we're gonna do a little beginner because I think for a lot of people out there it's just kind of like nice to do some of the simpler parts. So tomorrow we're gonna do this part here. What is a scoop for an AeroPress coffee maker. So we're going to take this part tomorrow and model that one up. Same time, where we are going to kind of like show you some tips and tricks if you're fairly new to Fusion. Hopefully you find that helpful. And then on Wednesday, we're going to make a drawing out of that. So a 2D drawing on that part. So you can actually send it out like how you would present a 2D drawing. What are we then? Today, tomorrow is the part, Wednesday. So Thursday, I want to talk about sheet metal again, because there's actually a couple of things I did not cover in the last sheet metal we did. There's some neat functions inside of that command that we got to cover. And then Friday is CAM, and I haven't quite decided what we're going to talk about on Friday. I was thinking maybe some engraving, but you let me know what you would like to see. Don't forget, email addresses down in the description area. Guys, hope you have an awesome Monday. Hope you're ready to, hit down on a cool, productive week. And I'm going to do what I normally do. I'm going to end the recording. So if you're watching that, thank you. I'm going to jump into the live stream and say hi to everybody. So, thank you so much. Happy Monday, everyone.